Hi, everybody. We're back.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, my dear friend. Good to see you.
Happy New Year to you too. It's 2026. I was really, really hoping that it would be like,
We just sail on into the new year. It feels like it's the
no,
middle of March already. I mean, can't
no,
believe
no, no,
it's only
no.
like the 8th.
Is it? Oh my God, you're right.
Is this what the next 3 years are like?
I gotta say, I hope I'm not aging as fast as I feel these years go because last year felt like half a decade. It really did. And yeah, we're only a quarter of a way through the Trump administration. And yeah, damn, there's a lot going on. I mean, some of it is good. Some of it is good, and some of it is, some of it is less
So let
good.
me just. Sunday morning, I got called from one of the TV networks and was like, "I'm sure you saw the overnight developments about Venezuela," and I was thinking that old thing, and I was thinking about some boat strike from the day before. And they're like, "Could you come on live?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine, whatever. It's 7 in the morning on a Saturday, but sure." And this is, the weekend after New Year's. And then I look and I'm like, "What? What did you think when you saw that?"
So, let me answer you by digressing, which I recognize as a symptom of old age. My late boss used to constantly digress, telling stories because he was from North Carolina, and that was sort of the Southern
His
way.
Bessie
Eh,
House.
Yes, and I have turned into that person. So, Elise, we've talked a lot about Roger Zackheim's work and the Reagan Foundation and the polling that they do. If you look at the polling of both Republicans and self-identified MAGA Republicans on national security, you wouldn't be at all surprised. If you read the New York Times only on what it is that the MAGA world thinks, you would be completely shocked. Was I surprised about Venezuela? I really, really was not. But there were some elements of it that were certainly, let's say, of interest. Like,
Mm.
where's J.D. Vance? Where's Tulsi Gabbard? And so that silence tells you everything you need to
Interesting.
know. Yeah. Anyway, what do you think?
When you say tell you what you need to know, what does it tell you?
So it tells me that MAGA is a movement that was defined and created by Donald Trump, and he is the one who gets to define the rules of engagement. And all of those people who've been going around for the last year, 5 years, 6 years, saying, yes, America first. And what America first means is the Charles Lindbergh phrase, America first, right? Fortress America. We don't do anything in the world. We don't spend on defense. We don't do any of those terrible things that previous Republican presidents did. And the answer is, yeah, that's not what Donald Trump thinks. Did you see his announcement today about spending on defense?
No. I was
Right.
just gone for an hour.
I know. I know you can't, baby. You can't leave for an hour anymore. That's just not. Let me tell you, in Australia, I wake up and it's like, oh my God, how am I going to take 16 hours and go through the news alerts and emails? So he put out a truth social, which was sent to me by Mark because Mark is a more, let's say, a subscriber on Truth Social, and I'm not. And he said, I have decided, long-winded, blah, blah, blah. I have decided here, at least, you know what? I have my computer open because we were having technical problems. I'll read it to you. It said something on the lines of, oh, hell, where do I get it? Excuse me, guys. I have decided that we are going to be spending not $1 trillion on defense anymore, but 1.5 trillion. Now, now, two things about that. Thing number one, he attributes the monster amounts of cash floating around to his excellent tariffs,
From the tariffs, yeah.
right, which we know is garbaggio, to use the Italian term. No, that's not Italian. But But in terms of a directional interest, let me just say, spending more on defense is not what the Heritage Foundation was all about. It's not what Russ Vought was all about. It's not what J.D. Vance was all about, and it certainly wasn't what the libertarian supporters of the right were all about. So, from the directional standpoint, I'm delighted. From the tariff standpoint, you guys know what we think. We think the same thing. But tell me what you thought about Venezuela, because I suspect we have the same concerns.
No one's crying in their soup over Maduro. Okay. He was horrible. He was not only a terrible dictator that was oppressing his people and pilfering his people and, decimating his economy and destabilizing the region, and everything they say about him being supporter of narco terrorism that's funding Hezbollah and Iran, and, all of that is true. But I was kind of like, first of all, I'm not saying that's not true, but there was an indictment against him since 2020. So why now? I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, it's the Epstein files. I'm not saying that's what it's about. I'm not. But I'm like, why now? We have so many other things. Like the president's trying to solve the war in Ukraine. Like, I still don't understand this fascination with the region. Now that comes into the national security strategy and, the more attention to the hemisphere, which we both agree is, long overdue. But again, as almost everything that we've discussed with this administration, it's not the original seed of the idea like, oh, maybe it's time to think more about our backyard. It's the execution, the implementation. I don't know that this raid, snatching the dictator in the middle of the night, bringing him here for this like pony dog and whatever, horse and pony show or whatever you call it.
Walk.
Yeah, this kabuki dance, I just don't understand what the US interests are. And then for him to say, yeah, well, we're going to, we want the oil, we're going to take the oil. Stephen Miller's rant on CNN about, we deserve it, it's ours. And, they did not replace, if they replaced the regime, if they took Maduro out and said, you know what, we're going to even occupy the country for the next 90 days and we're going to install the democratically elected leader of Venezuela, I'd be like, okay, transition to democracy. The region is going to move towards democracy. Fine. That's not what they did. They just changed the face of the regime because they want a more compliant leader there that they can boss around.
Okay, so a few things. Again, Stephen, my husband, just in case, for those of you who don't know.
Stephen Miller.
Not Stephen Miller, who is not my husband. So Stephen always says Trump always does the right thing for the wrong reasons, and I think that this fits into that category as well. So let me give you a couple of pieces of background which I think are relevant. The president, and I want to give Trump a little bit of credit on the timing issue that you raise here. On the timing issue, he has been, not just personally, but also via the administration, talking to the Venezuelans and talking to the regime for a long time. And he has been saying, we need a peaceful transition. You guys got to go. You got a choice, right? You want to be dictator, you want to be evil bad guy, you got to stop doing some of the evil bad guy things that are bad for the United States. Iran, China, suppression, drugs, terrorism, all of that, you got to stop. And Maduro basically gave him, the old Italian, and in fact, except that's a naughty expression. But yes, but it is. Anyway, so Maduro basically said no. And what happened was that these discussions had been going back and forth pretty intensively over the last couple of months. So the why now is basically the decision that we've come to the end of the road. He's not going to do this. Quiet discussions behind the scenes, and there were a lot, is not going to happen, and you got to go. Now, Mark and I released a podcast podcast yesterday with our mutual friend Roger Noriega, who's the former Assistant Secretary of State for Western Hemisphere Affairs, who's the former ambassador to the OAS, who's a former AEI colleague.
I encourage everybody, we'll put that in the show notes. Roger Noriega knows a lot about the region, and
he is no Trump voter. Let me tell you that. Although he is a Republican and served in the George W. Bush administration, but Roger said he is persuaded that it was Delcy Rodriguez, the current vice president, who actually gave Maduro up. He said that that's what it looks. That's what it looks like to me. Now, I want to add another point that I think folks have missed, because
she's just basically playing the part then.
In part, but part two of this is the little press availability that Marco Rubio did yesterday, in which, and again, I didn't see this as much in the English language press. I saw it weirdly in a Spanish tweet. Yes, don't ask me why, because he spoke in English, but he said this is a three-part process.
Oh, that was all over the American press. I saw that.
Okay, so there you go. That's what I get for being away. But he made clear that Delcy Rodriguez is not the end game here, and he talked about transition. Now, I want to make one last point to you all, and it's really important. And sorry for bogarting the mic, Elise, but the one last point that is critically important to understand is I've worked with opposition movements for decades, for my entire professional career. Some of them are incredible. You know, our friend Vladimir Kara-Murza, I adore. Our Iraqi friends in the opposition were a little bit more self-interested. There are and Maria Corina Machado, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, reminds me a little bit of Aung San Suu Kyi in Burma, in the sense that when she took over, she wasn't ready for prime time. And it's really important, if we can continue to pay attention, it's really important that we have a measured transition. I'm fine with that. The only issue that I think you rightly raise is this just going to be, you know, more compliant Delcy Rodriguez, Maduro in a skirt? And if that happens, that's an outrage, a terrible thing, and the wrong outcome. So this is where we're sort of hanging in the balance. And if you listen to Trump, that's what's going to be the outcome. If you listen to Rubio, no.
Yeah, but also back to this three-pronged thing. Okay, back to this three-pronged, phased, you know. First, it was stabilize the country following Maduro. Secondly, it was ensure American oil companies get access during this recovery phase. Transition is last.
Right, but look, you know, this is the Trump administration. Let us agree. I don't care about the American oil companies. I care about the transition. But let's agree that the person who's in charge of this is Rubio, and that Rubio is not interested in making sure that Chevron is great again. Rubio is actually interested in getting after these regimes in Latin America and South America.
I believe that's true about Rubio. I just hope he's able to persuade his boss to keep the eye on the long game here. Now, this takes us into this so-called Don Rowe doctrine and the idea that, like, you know, and back to Stephen Miller kind of talking about, like, this is our region, and, you know, what I'm concerned about is if it's not, like, again, what's the strategy? We got rid of Maduro, fine. Yeah. There's going to be a transition in Venezuela. But if there's some kind of broader, like, all right, and, you know, Trump's talking about Cuba, he's talking about Colombia, he's talking about going after cartels in Mexico. If we thought it was hard to get out of the Middle East, I'm just worried about, is there going to be a quagmire in the region where, you know what I mean? It's not like a strategy that we can kind of easily extricate ourselves from.
I guess I'm less worried about quagmire. You know, look, every single damn president we've had in recent memory has said, I'm going to get out of the Middle East, I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to pay attention to our neighborhood.
Latin America, right.
Exactly. And I don't think that's wrong.
What paying attention
means. Yeah,
We
yeah, I
don't
think
know
those
what
are all
that means. Are we
well.
going to help spread democracy through the region? And, or is this a kind of transactional extraction policy that, could help us, marginally on the economics, but, doesn't. I also, I also worry about the reputational aspects of not only in President Trump, but again, like President Trump is only thinking in 3-year terms. He's not thinking in 10 or 20 or 30-year terms. Like, I think a lot of the stuff that he's doing on behalf of the US, you could say it's on behalf of himself or the US. People have various ideas about that. But, you know, he's not the one that's going to have to, like, clean it up if it goes wrong.
So, you and I usually agree about that because I think Trump is very much a lame duck at this point. But I gotta say, you know, it's important for people to understand what was going on in Venezuela. And I did a really, really long, detailed explainer with a lot of links that we'll put in our show notes as well. But uh, Hezbollah on our shores, the Iranian regime on our shores, Iranian missiles uh, on our shores. Take that in
That's true.
conjunction.
That's true.
Take out, those are things that should worry not simply Donald Trump, but all Americans. And in the sense that Maduro was an infection that was spreading in South America, that was aided and abetted by Cuba, aided and abetted by Russia, aided and abetted by Iran. Those are bad things for us. I think you asked the $64,000 question, Elise, which is how does this end? If it ends as a transition to democratic rule in which the Chinese, the Iranians, Hezbollah, Hamas, coke dealers, small boats, and all the rest of that are done with, my view is kudos to you, Donald Trump. If it doesn't, then he's going to pay a price, and the Republicans are going to pay a price, and they will deserve it. So let's see how it comes out.
And
But
the
in
messaging,
principle, not a bad
this
thing.
and the truth of the matter is, like, if that's true, that's great. That's not the primary messaging. The messaging is pretty muddled, right?
Oh,
For a while, it was
totally.
all about drugs. Then it's all about oil. He was a dictator, but it's really about oil. I just want to quickly, we don't have to belabor it, but I do want to talk about Greenland. Um, yeah,
Yes.
we've talked about it before. Listen, um, kind of Stephen Miller articulated how they look at this. Like, we deserve it. It's ours. And Trump's like, we have to have it. The reason why we don't have to have it is because
It's because it belongs to our ally.
no, and it belongs to exactly. It belongs to a NATO ally, and we could do whatever we want there. We don't have to actually have the deed to it to get whatever we want. And the Danes have increased their security. And I did a good conversation this morning with Ivo Dalder, the former U.S. ambassador to NATO, which we'll also put in the show notes. But he really goes through what the Danes and the rest of NATO has been willing to do in the Arctic. And the key to Arctic security is NATO, stupid. And
Look,
so
I agree with you. I look, you know what? I think that sums it up. This is NATO's stupid, and I think that Stephen Miller, and you don't forget where this started too. This was Stephen Miller's wife who started this bullshit. I don't like that. I don't like the way they've behaved on it. I think it's dangerous. I think it's stupid, and I think it is contrary to our interests. We do have interest in Greenland. For sure.
we
If they
do,
want
we
to
do.
sell to us, I would say, all right, buy it.
Sure.
Great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about. That's not how you talk about allies. And I think I agree with you. It muddled the message. It was not only it was bad for our interests in the Arctic. It was bad for NATO, and it was you know what it was, Elise? Can I just give it one succinct word? It was dumb. It
It
was
was
just
dumb.
yeah. There you go.
And it could have been smart. Again.
Exactly. No,
It
you're
could have
right.
been smart if the first day he came in and said, my first call was to the Prime Minister of Denmark, and I want to make a partnership on Greenland, and we're going to double down on Arctic security. Good for you.
Yeah.
Instead,
Exactly. I
okay.
know. We agreed 100%. All right, let's talk about Iran.
Yes. Um,
So, let me lay out what I think is going on, and then let's you and I talk about the implications. So, first of all, this is there are pretty substantial anti-regime demonstrations going on in a bunch of places in Iran. I don't want to exaggerate. It's not all over the country. It's not everywhere. Regime elements in very few cases have joined the police in a couple of places, but
would you say it's as big as it was during the kind of protests, recent protests on the hijab protest, or after
so
the
the
killing
Mahsa
of the, yeah,
of Mahsa Amini.
yeah,
So Mahsa Amini protests were in 2022. Again, I want to contextualize this for everybody. If you guys are interested in this, then go to www.criticalthreats.org. We'll put it in the
excellent,
show notes.
excellent.
But this is the team that Fred Kagan runs at AEI with our friends at ISW, the Institute for the Study of War, and we've got maps. We've got a lot of maps where the demonstrations are, how big they are, what the themes are, what the regime response is, just so you can see for yourself. It's totally easy. It's a picture and it's
They
interactive.
do great stuff
So
on Iran in general. That should be like bookmarked on your
mm,
computer.
it it should, and so check that out. Look, I was talking to one of the CTP leads on Iran just this morning, well, my morning, and he says, look. I don't think the regime is about to fall. Now, the issue here is the difference between 2022 and now is 2022, we had Joe Biden in the White House. We had before October 7th, 2023.
When all the proxies were strong and the IRGC was
Right,
focused. Yeah.
exactly. The Iranian regime is much more insecure now. They're much more nervous. Ayatollah Khamenei is
And
3 years
weaker,
old.
weaker. Forget about their feelings and insecurities. They're weaker.
Right. So are
Vulnerable.
they overreacting? Is their perception of the risk higher than the real risk? Probably. Does that factor into the risk to the regime? Look, they just in Kermanshah, where there have been very substantial demonstrations, they've killed at least 24 people. In Kermanshah, they just shut off the internet and deployed the IRGC. So that's right. Remember, in Iran, there are a lot of different levels of police forces. There's the Artesh, it's the regular military. There's the Basij, there are the paramilitary police forces. There are the regular police forces. The IRGC is about external terrorism and about internal regime protection. They deployed the IRGC to Kermanshah. That means they're really nervous. Their nervousness could actually make the risk to the regime greater because if people perceive there's a chance they can knock it over, then all bets are off. But right this moment, people who are watching this at a very granular level think the regime isn't about to fall.
What do you
That's what
make?
I see.
What do you make of Trump's comments last week, saying that they're locked and loaded if the Iranian regime goes after the protesters?
So we've moved a bunch of forces as well. It's not just rhetoric. We have actually moved some forces in order to back up the president's rhetoric with action. But that being said, again, great, we're locked and loaded, but this is not about arresting Ayatollah Khamenei or President Pezeshkian. This is not about going in there and spiriting him out like Maduro. This is about a regime that has been in place for 47 years
But do
now.
you see the U.S. striking Iran over those protesters? I mean, it's not like democracy is like, or human
No,
rights is really important to him.
look, human rights hasn't been important to any of our presidents in George W. Bush.
Okay, that's fine. I'm talking
That's not
about
the
this.
point.
I'm talking about this particular threat based on, oh, if they go after the protesters, we're gonna go after them.
I would what I would say rather than questioning, the president's motives and intentions, what I would say is it's not entirely clear to me what we strike and how this advances the security and safety of the Iranian
Yeah,
people,
that
which is
was
what
my
the
next
president was
question.
talking about. And
That's my
he
next
said
question.
he said this about Hamas, if you remember, and it was all empty talk at the time. You know, we're going to go in and do this. So,
But did you see that the Iranian crown prince, the son of Iran's last Shah, Reza Pahlavi, is going to, did you see this? He's going to a breakfast event speaking at Mar-a-Lago. What kind of message is the administration trying to send here, if any? I don't think it's a coincidence.
I don't think it's a coincidence. The question is, did somebody pay for it, or was he invited?
I'm sure.
¿Por qué no los dos? That I can't answer. I again will say I know Reza Shah. He's a good man. I will give him credit and say he's a good man. I think so, but I am not sure. I am not sure that this is the plug and play for the future of Iran. Then again, if you guys pushed back on me and said, "Okay, Dany, what's your plan?" I'm not sure that I would say I have a plug and play for the future of Iran. So John McCain, the late beloved John McCain, I said to him, I probably even said this on this show in the past, but when he lost the election to Barack Obama, I said to him, well, Senator, I'm sorry about the outcome of the election. He goes, well, I'm not going to lie to you. It's better to win. And and I think, look, it would be great to get rid of this regime, and and it would be great to get rid of this regime. But the question of what's next is always on my mind. And one thing I don't want is to go out of the frying pan and into the fire. I do not want an IRGC military dictatorship there.
Right.
My friends who disagree with me, my friends at FDD, the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, say no, anything is better. Maybe that's true. Certainly, that's been potentially true in Syria. You and I have both been sort of philosophical about going from Assad to former Al Qaeda. But listen, would I mourn those guys? Not a chance. So we'll see what happens.
How do you think the Israeli threats and U.S. kind of tangential threats to go after the regime again for reconstituting their nuclear program would fit into all this? I mean, if they strike again, does that kind of end the protests and people rally around the flag, or do you think that this is like they smell blood in the water? Let's and is that in the mind of the Israelis and the U.S.?
You are in super interview mode. I feel like you're a guest on your television show,
But
Elise.
you're more like the expert on Iran, so that's why I'm asking you that.
I'm the talking head, baby, and my head says,
Bobble wobble,
everyone,
bobble.
blah, 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 blah. My head says this, in Iran, everybody, all of our so-called experts, the sort of the chattering classes said, oh, the American strike, the Israeli strike will cause the Iranian people to unify around the regime. That's not true. At the end of the day, they know the regime better than we do. Does that mean that the Iranian people think that they should not have nuclear weapons? No, I think the Iranian people think, why not us? We're great people. But they hate the regime, and it's hitting everything. It's not just that the regime is teeter-tottering. It is that
The economy is.
the economy is in the crapper and getting worse every day, and they're trying to figure out how to mitigate it, but they don't want to mitigate it at the expense of their ideological commitment to having nuclear weapons and the missiles to deliver them. And that's the problem. I'm looking at Candace. Right. I think that many people in Iran hate the regime. Look, it's one of the America is most popular in Iran for a reason. And it's because people hate the regime.
Yeah.
Rightly so.
Yeah.
Okay, we got only like a few more minutes, although we're going longer.
We're now a 40-minute show, remember?
We're 40 minutes, baby. And they can never be allowed to have nuclear weapons. You are right, David.
Let's talk about Minnesota. And I'm look, I think what happened when we talked about this a few weeks ago with this fraud is horrible.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Um what the administration is doing now, and they're calling it the largest ICE operation in the administration's history. I don't understand why you need ICE to investigate fraud. That's an FBI function. And this shooting today was disturbing for many reasons. I don't know if you saw did you see the tape?
It did.
It looked to me like this person was not trying to run over that guy. It did look to me like they were
It doesn't
cutting.
matter what it looks like to you, Elise. It mattered what it looked like to the person who was standing in front of the car. Look, I mean, we can agree here. Uh,
He
we
could
don't,
have
we
shot
don't,
the
we
he
don't.
could have shot the wheels. He shot after the car as it was driving away. He could have shot the wheels and disabled the car.
Look, there'll be an investigation. We'll see what happens. And making a judgment based on this, based on the video itself. We are hot takes happy hour, and these are hot takes. But we need to recognize that hot takes aren't always the most accurate. I will say this, guys:
Okay.
if you get a lawful order from a federal official, you should comply with that lawful order.
Yes.
You should not seek to drive away. You should not seek on icy streets to try to turn your vehicle. And by the way, you probably should keep your nose out of this business in any case. But look, anytime somebody dies, it is a tragedy, and it is a tragedy for this woman, is a tragedy for her family, but she has agency as well, unfortunately. And I'm going to wait to see. I'm going to wait to see what happened. But my view is that people doing their jobs for the federal government, you may not like it. You may not like what they're doing. You may not like the fact that there are people in this country, the majority, who think that the 4 million illegal aliens who came in the Biden administration should not be in the country. But these are lawful federal agents, and they have a lawful federal role. So, perhaps don't put yourself in a position of risk.
They have a lawful federal role. I'm not sure if if the role that they're actually executing is the lawful role that they have. Like I said, why do you need a huge ICE operation to go out there? And they're tying it directly to the fraud. And again, I'm not justifying the fraud. The fraud is horrible. Those people should be investigated and arrested. But
And
why?
deported.
And deported. Fine.
That's what ICE does.
Um, no, that's an FBI function.
No,
The ICE, the
if
ICE.
they're illegal aliens.
Okay, but they should be arrested, and then if they're illegal aliens, then they should be deported by ICE. But we're muddling. This is exactly what they've done with this whole immigration. And again, I'm not justifying, illegal migration to this country. And certainly if these people are criminals, again, the administration said they were going after the worst of the worst. I just don't understand why this massive operation and what it has to do with fraud and why they're rounding up people on the streets. That's an FBI function, and you don't investigate fraud by rounding up people on the streets.
Well, I think all of this will come out in the investigation, and we will see. In the meantime, let's remember, if you receive a lawful federal instruction
Yes.
from a lawful federal agent, possibly you should comply. She was asked to get out of her vehicle, and she did not. And should it have ended this way? We're going to find out. But
Well,
I gather that
it shouldn't have ended this way. But if whether the investigation will show whether she was trying. I guess it might show that. I don't know. But I will
we'll
say
see.
that I don't feel comfortable that Kristi Noem and the kind of things that she said so far, and give me a lot of confidence that this investigation will be done. And I'm not saying that there aren't good investigators, whether it's the FBI or anything, but we do know that if the administration gets um, results or investigation or recommendations that they don't want to hear, either those recommendations aren't accepted or sometimes those people are fired. So I do hope that the investigation um,
Has integrity.
has integrity, Dany.
There you go. We agree
Anything
about
else?
that. We agree about that. So just one teaser, and
Yeah.
maybe you know because I'm so far away. Supreme Court decision coming tomorrow. Very unusual that it would come in January, not
Is this
a
on the
season.
tariffs?
Is it on the tariffs or on the Louisiana redistricting? I think those are the two big questions. But I will tell you, you heard it here first. If it is on the tariffs, I think that the president's authority that he has claimed that he's going down. I don't think it
I agree.
sustains.
I
But
agree.
if it's on Louisiana, I have no freaking idea.
I think if it's on Louisiana, they'll accept it.
We'll see. I don't know the whys and wherefores of the case, but there's a lot going on. Hey, where are we invading next week? Iran.
Cuba.
Cuba. Cuba. Hey, guys, last note here. Very, very interesting. Eli Lake. I'll put this in the show notes as well. And you guys know I love the Free Press. We had Eli Lake on the podcast. Elise knows Eli. We do. We all love Eli. He's a very old friend to all of us. Wrote a very good, very thoughtful piece about how Marco Rubio made this happen. And one of the most interesting parts of it was how Marco Rubio managed people inside the administration who don't give a damn about Venezuela or Cuba or bad guys, commies, fascists, whoever they are. It was a very interesting piece. But I will say this: I have been very impressed by how he has managed the internal politics of the Trump administration, because that's not an easy thing, guys. And he's done a really good job. He's managed J.D. Vance. He's managed Stephen Miller. He's managed all of the Fruit Loops, Hegseth, and all the rest of them. So watch that space. That was pretty
Yeah,
interesting. And
I
we'll
mean,
put this
just to
in
finish up
this as
the
well. I'm
point,
making a note.
just to finish up the point, you know, my feelings of Marco Rubio have kind of ebbed and flowed over the administration.
And
And, I was always like, he knows better. He knows better. Why is he standing there like a deaf mute? Why isn't he speaking up? Why isn't he speaking up? And now we know why, because he was keeping his
he's
powder dry for this moment. I will say I highly recommend Eli's piece. I'm sure it's going to be a lot more nuanced, contextual, and fair and balanced than the close-up to the CBS Evening News, where they gave a good salute to good old Marco. Did you see that?
no.
I'll send it
No,
to you.
I didn't see it. Right. And of course, you and I can't shut the hell up. So we've had like every 6 final points, but a final point, I absolutely hate bias in the newsroom. It's a feature, not a bug. And the right answer for conservatives is not to have their own biased newsrooms. It is for bias to be pushed out of
Well,
the
I mean,
newsroom.
first of all,
Period.
CBS
That
is
ship
not
has
supposed
probably sailed.
CBS is not supposed to be a conservative newsroom, but if you are a conservative outlet and you want to label yourself conservative, or if you want to label yourself liberal, then do that. But don't purport yourself to be a independent, nonpartisan, fair and balanced journalist and think that, I don't if you are labeling yourself as such, I don't give a shit what your opinion is. Tell me over beer. Okay? I don't care what.
You heard it here first. Elise doesn't give a shit what your opinion is.
I don't. I don't want my news with a dose of righteous indignation sprinkled on this. You know what I mean? I don't care if you're embarrassed to be American, Jake Tapper. I don't care.
Yeah, that's why
And I
C-SPAN.
think,
That's why C-SPAN exists.
and I think part of the thing that you know journalists should be doing right now is you can look at the policy and you can look at the trade-offs and you can look at the pros and cons, but your personal feelings about the people that are involved in the policy, that's called opinion journalism.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if you want to be an opinion journalist, as our Jewish boobies would say, gang is into hate.
And on that note, goodbye, everybody. Happy New Year to you all. Bye, Elise. Mwah. See you soon.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week. Put your comments in the chat and look forward to seeing you again soon. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes and look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Bye, everybody.